Cool. All right. Welcome to the second Postmint AMA, everyone. We'll get right into it and make sure that we get to everyone's questions. So the first one that we're going to answer is from Blaceflo asking about, Corora Beast. Yeah, it is pretty similar to our project. He's wondering how you intend on differentiating from other projects that are similar. And yeah, that makes perfect sense. Um, I'm kind of right there with you. I'm sick of the pixel projects. I don't know if sick is the right word for me. Like I actually like the art a lot, um, but every project I've come across is pixel art. And I was kind of thinking about why, and it seems like the most like kind of common thing for them is that they're it's just easy to make. It's easy to um, design a game around pixels, not because the art is super easy, because it does take a lot of talent to create that. More so, you can leave a lot of other things behind. You don't have to pay as much attention to animation and VFX and stuff like that. That'll come secondary, and so pixel art is just like understood to have a basic game structure around it. But anyway, I think it's an awesome project. The main difference that I've seen between ours and theirs is that they're pretty much just recreating Pokemon, which is totally fine. That's at their own discretion, and that seems to be the vibe that they're going for. There's a game on the uh, like finance side of things that's doing I think it's called Block Monsters, but they're also doing just like a dead straight up like Pokemon remake. And I just don't think that those games are quite built out for the structure you need in Play and Earn. I think Corora Beast is doing a good job, but their core gameplay is still very heavily Pokemon. And that's just not the style that we're going for. I know that the monsters get compared to Pokemon a lot because they're cute and fun, but our gameplay mechanics are almost have like very few similarities with Pokemon. There's far less elements. The way that they interact with each other is different. The stats are nowhere similar to Pokemon. Pokemon uses like this BST model, and so their Pokemon have different stat totals. Each stat, is similar to ours, but functions very differently. And Corora Beasts is basically taking all of that and applying it to their game. I'm pretty like deeply familiar with the mechanics of Pokemon, like the internal workings, and it seems that the Corora Beasts developers are as well, because they're following it pretty much to a T. But yeah, I mean it's really good. Pokemon has a good competitive scene too, so I look forward to watching their project. But that's like kind of the main difference, and I would say that that's what differentiates us from a lot of the other projects that have like similar artwork or like seemingly similar styles. Is we're not drawing our actual gameplay implementation from Pokemon. We're drawing it from other games that have marketplaces and revenue models. Pokemon just relies on its widespread popularity. The competitive scene is largely like player made, and so we're following more kind of that mobile platform mechanics, and those have been wildly successful both in popularity and in functionality for like marketplaces and stuff, which Pokemon's never really achieved. So that's one reason that I like our model a lot. Very good question, though. That's one that I'm surprised we don't get more often. Next question is from Psalm. What are the team's plans as it relates to the Genesis Mint capital raise? Another really good question. So we've stated it in the past a little bit as well, but I'll go back to it. So we reserved 10% for the internal team. 35% has been reserved for seeding the initial liquidity of the token to make sure that we're starting that at a good value for everyone. And then 55%, so the lion's share of it has been allocated to employee retention and securing new hires. The first of which has already been made with Guybrush. You guys saw the announcement the other day. So we want to make sure that we're using as much of those funds as possible to advancing the game itself and advancing our team and making sure that we're bringing in like high quality people to keep building. We're still out there looking for an additional developer to bring in, and also partnerships with a game studio. I've had meetings with several this week already. Looking forward to closing on that soon. But yeah, so to answer your question, 90% of it's being funneled back into the game to make sure that we're developing this thing to the best it can possibly be. Genesis Mint was just the start for us. It's not the finish line. A lot of projects have it as like the end all be all for their project, and it's like that massive like fundraising opportunity for the team, to take their cut, and we're approaching it a little bit differently because we see the game as our mission, not just that first mint. Next, we have a question from Atrix about how many monster skills there are and what they are. I'll post like a longer list for you guys so that you don't have to memorize all of this. But essentially, each monster has 2 to 5 skills. The higher the rarity, the more they'll have. They've got attack up and so essentially every skill is going to have like a secondary effect tied to it. Some of them will have multiple. But by doing that, we allow every monster to be like somewhat unique in the way that they function. So some of those will look like a basic attack, but with a secondary effect, including attack up or attack down, speed up or speed down, defense up, defense down. You guys are familiar with those sorts of things from other games. Shields, so that'll be like adding bonus HP to monsters. There'll be like self shields and team shields. Protect is another one, so that's like a damage sharing concept. So if your monster protects another monster, generally it'll be a tank that's protecting. They'll receive part of the incoming damage to the other monster. And that's really good for protecting an attacker, maybe a glass cannon, that sort of thing. So I'm a huge fan of that mechanic. We have status related stuff like stun, sleep, poison, burn, frighten, and confusion. Stun is like, disabling your opponent for a turn or two. Sleep is the same thing, but when contact is made, they'll wake up. It'll also guarantee a critical hit. Poison, they'll take a % damage on their HP every turn. Burn, similar, but it'll have like secondary impacts. So a lot of like skills will pair with burning. Deal more damage if the opponent's burned, stuff like that. That'll be specific to each monster. Frighten, which is a chance to just not attack. That one's a little bit more basic, but you can think of it as giving a monster kind of like the jitters or something, like they get nervous and they may just like forego their turn altogether. And then confusion, similar to Pokemon, it'll have like a chance to attack itself for some basic damage. And then we also have 3 heal related ones that I'll mention. A basic heal, which recovers HP. A continuous heal, which is like a heal over time. So you're recovering some % of HP over time. And then lifesteal, which is where you're taking HP from the opponent based on how much damage is dealt. And we have the option to add more of those in the future, but that's where we're sitting right now in terms of our plans for that. Also, one of the mods stop me if I'm going too fast, or if I'm not talking loud enough. Next question is from Moosers. At what point in the development process will our assets be officially used, leveled up, and building for the future? So we mentioned a little while ago, we'll have functional assets in the open alpha. So the alpha is intended to only use monster bases, but you'll be able to level up the bases, equip them with runes. By doing that, you can customize their stats to match your playstyle. So that's something that, as a player is like really important. It's going to feel like true gameplay. It's like we've mentioned that we're using it for testing, but it's not actual like only bug testing. We're not going to like roll back everyone's progress from that, unless there's like something major that like requires a rollback, but the plan is for this to be like early access. Like you guys are getting to legitimately play the game and go through that process. So you'll have access to leveling up and runes to customize your monsters, and then soon after that, we'll be rolling out the core system and evolutions. So those won't be present in the alpha testing, but our like next rollout will include those functionalities. Um, I really like the like structure of a phase rollout. It helps keep everything controlled and siloed, and it gives you guys good growth opportunities as well. It helps keep the game away from being too aggressive, favoring people with a lot of resources. And so starting with those bases is going to be really good for everyone. Next question is from Blaceflo again. Just wanted to ask how development's going. Hope you guys are still having fun building. Yeah, development is going well, and we're having a really fun time doing it. One of the benefits of having like really cute monsters and fun art is that it makes development a lot more fun too. Hooking up assets is pretty rewarding. Seeing the artwork come to life is really rewarding as well. So as we're putting together like the artwork for like the elemental symbols and the cores and the runes, like it's just a good feeling, especially when we've had the vision running for so long to create them. Um, we hired on Guybrush, as you guys know. That's really accelerated our work on the back end. It's been a lot of fun integrating him into the workflow. We're still looking, as I mentioned, to bring on another developer, and we've had some good meetings with game studios this week about UI and UX and VFX. So the stuff that really makes the game look more polished and AAA quality. We know the mechanics are going to be there, but we want to make sure that visually it has that same appeal. The monsters and champions are awesome, and the art is insanely good, and we've gotten a lot of compliments on it. But in order to bring in outside people, they want to see like clean, smooth gameplay, and so we're making sure that we deliver that as well. Not only for them, but for you guys too. That's how you make the game fun and make it lasting. Um, well, that and earnings, of course. Everyone likes earnings. Okay, our next question is from Atrix again. What do you see as the largest risks to your project success? Good question. So I'd say one of the largest risks that we've encountered so far is from natural growth. We're shunning the hype cycles and the shilling, and we want people to play the game because they have a genuine interest in it, rather than like a pyramid approach. Um, I would say that has served us well, but it also has led to us like answering a lot of questions about, like why is your unique holder count like low relative to supply and what you see in other projects. And the main reason is because a lot of them are artificially pumped. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I think it's a good thing, and I think that it's a good approach for them for accomplishing their vision. They want to get like kind of that FOMO cycle, and I refer to it a lot as a hype cycle, and that results in more unique holders because you have people just buying in because they don't want to miss, uh, out on stuff that they don't even know what it is yet. Whereas with our approach, we have a lot of people who know the game a little more intimately. As you guys know, our community's been amazing. You guys don't like selling, and so we've encountered a lot of positive things to that. But I would say overall, natural growth is what's like kept us from having that like explosive, uh, growth, for lack of a better word. Um, but we do have a tight knit community and good support system, and that's going to take us really far. Um, and also, your question was asking about like our project's success, which is subjective. So I'm glad that you asked about the KPIs. I think we're successful if we deliver value and opportunity for our early community. We want you guys to reap massive rewards for being here early, and so our number one mission is going to be to bring that value to you guys as we build out this game and make sure that as we expand, you guys are winning in it as much as we are, because you guys deserve to. The fact that we're starting small means that we're in a good position to do that and to do it for a really long time. Um, and then yeah, getting to your next question about like KPIs specifically, we're going to look at daily and weekly growth for retention numbers once we start our marketing. I would say that that's like number one. Um, there's three primary drivers that we're going to be looking at for our expansion. Number one is going to be the referral program. Number two is token launch, and number three is game launch. Each one of those will be pretty instrumental in bringing in new players. A game that's like post mint and pre token is not the pinnacle of intrigue. Like I don't even think personally I would pay much attention to a project in that phase. So we'll pay attention to the growth numbers like when we expect growth to actually happen. But I would say post mint and pre token is not uh, like an ideal time for an outsider because it means that they missed being early. You know, the mint's already happened, but earnings haven't happened yet. And so as we get closer, like to that actual release, it sets us up in a good position to start bringing people in. But what you don't want to do is bring people in right now, have a bunch of, I mean, again, we want to bring people in, but for a lot of eyes, you know, a lot of people out there on Twitter and social media, you only have a certain number of opportunities to cross their field of vision before they stop paying attention. So we want to make sure that we've set ourselves up to capture their attention when we do hit the marketing, as opposed to having them look at the game, think, "Oh, that's cool," check it out, and realize that their floor price is up, token's not out yet, so there's not kind of that easy avenue for them to hop in. So looking in a couple weeks is when we're going to start focusing on those KPIs a little more, and the growth and retention numbers. But really, our number one KPI is going to be our community. Activity and retention are key. We're looking to double the size of the Discord with the referral program. Statistically speaking, that would just be like one invite per person. So incredibly realistic. I know a lot of you guys have friends that are probably kind of following the project from the outside. We've received a lot of feedback similar to that. Like, we have a lot of interest and people are just looking for that way to get in, like what their angle is going to be. And then also mention like people like having a chance to earn, and we have a really good ecosystem to execute that mission. We aren't pixelated, we're not using a Ponzi structure, and we're here for the long haul. So I'm actually really feeling good about where we are right now. I think that we've taken good approach to differentiation, and I think it's going to serve us really well in the long run. We've built like a really tight-knit community so far, and so I think that that's going to carry us in a really good direction. Next question is, good questions, Atrix. Next question is from Johnny Bracco. What project in crypto inspires you? So I've taken a lot of personal inspiration from crypto raiders because they grew very naturally as well. I have a lot of respect for that team. Working with them has been awesome. It's a lot of really good people in the space, and I've in my search for game design studios, I've come across several that crypto raiders had contacted and about working with, and all of them said that Crypto Raiders has one of the most genuine teams that they've met. There are a lot of Web3 teams that are reaching out to game studios to try and get those partnerships, and it actually meant a lot to hear someone say that they were appreciative of that Crypto Raiders team and kind of that genuinity that they expressed. That's one reason I look up to them, but on top of that, I think that they've built something really good in general. They didn't rely on crazy hype. They have done things their own way, and it's been cool to watch them grow and come into this space as a player. Especially with them starting like last year, kind of in those earlier stages of Web3 gaming. They went with Polygon, which wasn't as popular like a chain back then. Like even now, Polygon is not at its peak. It's still growing, which is awesome. It's awesome for us because it means that there are a lot of new users that are going to be coming into this space. But they took a leap of faith with that, and it's been awesome. People have really appreciated the fact that their game is basically gasless. Like you don't have to put up with a bunch of expensive transactions to get things done, and they've built a really like healthy and happy community as well. So I would say that they're my number one inspiration in the space. Other than that, I haven't looked at a ton of other projects for inspiration. Basically, very few projects have succeeded in building the models that they want to actually build. Um, Again, I don't have a problem with that because I understand that things change in development, with any project. But at the same time, it means that I don't think any team has quite nailed that economic model and that game model. It's always a little bit too much one or too much the other. They all seem to kind of circle back to pyramid mechanics. And then while we're on that, I really like Axie as well. I know that one's kind of a basic project to draw inspiration from, but they were kind of the first ones to do it right in my eyes. I think that they were maybe a little slow to the punch to make their adjustments to SLP and keep hyperinflation out of it, but still, I think that they built something incredible, and they have kind of jump started all of these other games who are looking to those models that they pioneered. But yeah, I would say Crypto Raiders number one for sure for me. Question from Bowtied Snake. How will you acquire eggs later on, and how difficult is it to get rare, super eggs, and so on in the game? Good question. So eggs will have like a set like a mission rate per season. The chance of finding an egg will be pretty low in any given run. It'll probably be around 1%. And so like roughly one out of every 100 runs you can expect to get an egg. But it'll be in a way that lets you calculate like a loose ROI, because that's what a lot of people coming into a game are going to want to care about. On top of that, so that's just from basic dungeons. Those dungeons will give you an opportunity to earn eggs just as you play the game. But the best opportunity for like high quality eggs is going to be through PvP, which again won't be present at launch, but coming very, very soon after. And that's where you'll have PvP like rankings and ranking based rewards. Those ranking based rewards will often be tied to those those higher quality eggs. So rare eggs will be fundamental in the basic game. We've mentioned before the rates on those. It'll be 89% to hatch into a rare, 10% to hatch into a super rare, and then 1% to hatch into ultra rare. And so, some rarity tiers there. If luck's on your side, you're going to get some really nice, earnings from the hatching in that egg. And so we really like that structure. But to make sure that we're giving like I don't want to say the best rewards, because really if you're accumulating a lot of basic eggs, you're in really good shape. The rates will be in your favor on that. But to give like a more guaranteed like high rarity item, participating in PvP and improving your ranking is going to be really important there. That's where those super rare eggs and the ultra rare eggs are going to be mostly emitted. So, and the reason for that is you want to silo your most like earning potential options. So the heaviest options for earning, you want to keep those in your dedicated community. And so, anyone can get lucky and discover an egg through basic gameplay, which is awesome. That's how we want it to be. But on top of that, if you want to have, more heavily sustained earnings and higher opportunity to earn something rare, that's going to come through PvP, which requires more involvement in our game ecosystem than simply coming in and running a couple dungeons. Really good question, though. Question from Ferris. Can you explain more the production limit of resources? Is it limited by time spent or game energy or both? It's limited by both. So the number that you need to be most aware of as a player, or the resource rather, is energy. So energy is the cost of running a dungeon. You'll get a certain amount of free energy every day. And so that'll just kind of let you run those dungeons over time. It'll likely be like reaccumulated on a weekly schedule to allow for more comfortable gameplay for people. We don't want you to have to log in every 5 minutes to play. Um, Autoplay is meant to kind of ease that for you. So for people that can't play all the time, you can set it up on autoplay and let it do its thing. It's not the most efficient thing in the world, but it will save you time if you're not someone who wants to sit down and play a game for 10 hours, because autoplay lets you do that. You can play a game for 10 hours straight on autoplay, no problem. But yeah, energy will be king there. That's what allows you to run the dungeons. Dungeons are what allow you to accumulate resources. Um, and it's really that simple. Like the core game loop revolves around that energy and around energy refills. And kind of playing off of that, energy refills will be most likely the heaviest sink in the game. So in order to continue playing, you're going to have to refill your energy. By doing that, you get continuous access to runes to power up your monsters, EXP to power up your monsters, um, you know, opportunity to find eggs, which is huge. That's where you can start making, profit and earnings. And then on top of that, we'll have some emission rates for cents in the dungeons as well, our game token. Um, so yeah, just kind of having that complete ecosystem to make sure that there's multiple opportunities for earnings and multiple opportunities for progression. Uh, and again, to circle back to your question, that will all revolve around the energy resource. And then we have a couple other limited production resources that we can get into later. One that I'll mention briefly right now is our fatigue system. So in addition to energy, which is account wide, each monster has a fatigue value to prevent it from being overused in a tight time span. So your monster's fatigue will be reduced over time if it's resting. Um, so basically, what that does, it encourages deeper rosters, and it favors the just casual players overall. It gives them more of a fighting chance to be competitive because it's not likely that a casual player is going to be burning through their monster fatigue, whereas someone who's hammering dungeons 24/7 will be burning through their fatigue and need to have a deeper roster. And when they need a deeper roster, that means they may be looking to go out and purchase more monsters, and so that benefit kind of trickles down to all players. Um, again, so that's kind of a way that we can enforce balance in our game, and I think it makes it really fun as well. Um, I always liked having a reason to have more than one of a monster in a game. As Zach knows, I'm someone that absolutely has to collect every monster in every game that I've ever played. Um, I spent a lot of time and effort doing that in one game, right before they changed the mechanics behind it to where you didn't benefit from having like a different of every monster. They changed it so that you could have duplicates. And I was really upset at first because I put all that work in. And then it was even more fun to go and secure the duplicates. So we're rolling with a similar structure here, where we want people to have multiples of the same monster. It brings a lot of value to the ecosystem. Question from Novoslav: will PvP come first or will PvE? And what will the PvP look like? So PvE will come first. That'll be basic, like you're fighting against a boss. Your entries will recover weekly. So be fighting against like a weekly boss that gives like standard rewards. Those are going to be like, kind of what you see more in other projects where it's just kind of like an absolute meat shield of a boss. You're going to hit it for as much as you can. We have a point system that rewards you with points based on how much damage you deal and how much damage you take. And then we'll have a ranking system for those points. So you guys will be stacked up against each other in terms of points dealt over your account for the course of the week. We'll have a leaderboard for most points accumulated in a single boss battle. And then we'll also have I'm looking to have like a raffle of sorts where just participating with your account gives you an opportunity to earn as well. So by having those three things set up for the bosses, That'll be what the early PvE looks like, and then on top of that, dungeon mechanics. So that's where you're going through several waves of enemies, defeating them, probably a boss at the end of that as well. And then once that boss is defeated, you'll get like a chest with randomized rewards. Um, so there is some competitive aspects to the PvE, even though you're not fighting against other players directly. Um, I am a huge fan of PvP, so I'd like to get that in the game as soon as possible. Currently, PvE is the early implementation because it allows for earnings the earliest and doesn't require quite as heavily or quite as heavy balance. So it's probably a better like testing suite for us to roll with. But PvP will come soon after, and that's when you'll be fighting directly against another player. That'll have a leaderboard as well. It'll be somewhat similar to Axie's like MMR system, and so we'll have rankings. The rankings will be based on your performance. We'd like to scale those based on the difficulty of your opponent as well. So looking to have like a pretty robust leaderboard system there, with earnings based on like what tier you fall into. And we're hoping to evolve those tiers over time so that, you know, players in each tier have an opportunity to get like earnings that are more fit for where they are in the game. Good question though. Uh, Pixie, I'm not sure that I fully understand your question. Stacking will have locks of period. Um, could you maybe try rewording it so I make sure that I can get to it and do it justice? That'd be great. Or if someone else could help out. Maybe I'm just blanking. Um, Next question is from Bowtied Snake. Can you stake your champion? So you won't be able to stake your champion directly for tokens. It's something that we're going to look into further. So our tokenomics advisor had mentioned to us that OpenSea was starting to pull projects off of their platform entirely, because they allowed just straight up like staking of an NFT, so like passive revenue earnings of token, um, without doing anything at all. So essentially, we want to avoid that because that's something that puts our collection out of our control. If OpenSea just like yanks it. So we're looking into it to make sure that before we do that, that we're allowed to. I had that conversation with Nat like a week ago, and he told me that they were doing that. But then Moonbirds just launched earlier this week, and they let you directly stake your assets to earn passively. So we're looking back into it. If we do find that that is allowed, then we can look into having champions staked for rewards like passively. And again, that's just like super super basic passive earnings. Is I purchased this asset. I can stake it and generate tokens while it's staked, and then that lets you calculate like a rough ROI. Good. Yeah, what's
Sorry.
up?
Yeah, regarding the question from Pixie, I think he's asking, so we will be able to stake our coins. So, the question is, will it have a lock period? Like, will it be locked
Oh,
for 3, 6, 9 months and so on, like CryptoRaider? I
gotcha.
think that's his question.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, well, we're looking to roll with the 36912 structure that CryptoRaiders has used. So having like a couple locking options. Anytime you add tokens, like it keeps your same duration, that sort of thing. Um, I think it's a really good structure. Locking mechanisms are great for multiplying your income of that game token. And so I'm a big fan of it. I think that people who are serious about the game will, be staking their mons to earn like more rapid cents by locking it up for a longer period. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that structure, and I know that Nat is as well. So yeah, you can expect that locking period. But again, that's also like your choice. You don't have to lock your tokens up for the increased earnings if you don't want to. Um, Next question is from Excalibur. Any news about token launch? Should be late April according to roadmap. Yeah, so roadmap is slightly outdated, and we'll make sure that we adjust it. We're not far off from it, but since we're prioritizing the egg drops and the smart contracts for that, it means that the token launch is pushed back a couple weeks. That also allows us time to adjust to our unique holder count and make sure that we're emitting those tokens in a way that makes sense for the long-term vision of the game. Which means we're making sure that we evaluate it to bring the most value to you guys in the way that those are distributed. We don't want them to become too siloed to where they're not able to draw in new players. So yeah, we'll try to get like official dates out there because I know everyone likes those. But yeah, I would say don't look too heavily at the late April on the roadmap because we are slightly under that right now. Okay, next. Can you explain how to switch between champions in game? This is a question from DMAC. Can you switch champions mid-battle or before battle? You're curious about how it works holding multiple champions. So that switch will occur before a battle. So prior to entering any battle, you're going to have a selection screen where you're picking which monsters and which champion you're taking into that battle. I like the idea of being able to switch champions mid-battle, but that would be more of a late game mechanic when you have more intricacies for champions. At the start, they're just going to be providing that elemental bonus, and so you really wouldn't have a whole lot of reason to switch it out mid-battle. Your team should be largely focused on whatever element your champion provides. Again, you don't have to go all in on it. Like if you have a fire champion, you don't need your whole team to be fire. Perhaps you want to take like half fire and half nature to counter any water types that you might come across. Yeah, that's a good question. So that selection will take place before the battle. Next question from Excalibur. Do you expect to get your game out in alpha at the start/middle May, or do you expect it later? Right now, we're looking at like mid to late May. So that's pretty much in line with what was on the roadmap. Mid to late May gives us time to make sure that it's built properly, to make sure that visually we're getting what we need in there as well. We are accelerating development now that we've brought on Guybrush, and if we can add one more person in here as well, that'll definitely help push us to that finish line for that alpha. But yeah, I would say that you can still expect it in May. That's our internal target for sure, and that hasn't changed. From Oblomov, will the eggs have a scarcity level? Yes. They'll be scarce. They'll be scarce within each season. So we're going to roll out seasons, and there'll be like a set egg amount for each season. So once that emission total is reached, the eggs will be shut off for a short period of time. You can still hatch them, but you won't be finding any new ones until the next season begins. That helps us keep a hold on supply. That's something that we've seen a lot of other projects struggle with, is not having levers to manage supply. And so that's really important to us to make sure that we're taking proper care with that opportunity. Kanan, I can put together a graph for you with more detailed percentages. Obviously, I can't speak it right now in the AMA, but yeah, we can get that to you. If you can, give me like a little more detail about what you want. We can put together kind of whatever you want to see for that in terms of like how it's planned to be emitted or what the distribution looks like between like LPs and like game emissions, stuff like that. Question from Excalibur again. Do you want to create a gacha game where people can buy chests with sense and improve their monster by evolving them and improving their skill and stats, or more like Pokemon where you catch it, level it up by playing with it, but not by using sense? I'd say somewhere in the middle. We want most of the monsters to be obtained through actual gameplay. So you're running a dungeon, finding an egg, and hatching it. Similar to that, you're going to do most of your upgrading through actual gameplay as well. That helps stimulate like sense turnover and keep it like heavy circulation of like the token, like just moving, changing hands a lot. We want heavy sinks in place for that. However, kind of in line with heavy sinks is that gacha component where people are spending like just for like a chance or an opportunity at something. We don't anticipate using that for like monsters straight up. So like a true gacha game would be you're buying monster eggs directly from the gacha and hoping that you're hatching something good. Um, we're not going to probably be doing that sort of structure as heavily, but we will have like upgrades and cosmetics and stuff that we'll make available through a more gacha style structure. So kind of striking that balance between the two. Uh, Question from Fate Shaper: how do you plan to differentiate yourself from the other Monster Battle NFT pay to earn games out there? Good question. We touched on it a little bit earlier. Number one is that we're not taking directly from Pokemon with our mechanics. Our mechanics are going to be something that's new to a lot of people, which is good. They're not like crazy complex with a learning curve, so I think it'll be intuitive for people to come in and understand the game. Um, but the other way we're going to differentiate is by having high customization with our monsters. We're not doing breeding, and we're not doing like the same monster with a bunch of just like randomized features on it. The reason for that is our game is not that like simple in terms of battle mechanics. It's not just straight up like pay to win. Like these are the best features you can have on your character, and that's it. What I see with most games is they have like this base monster template, and they use like generative stuff to determine what's on the monster and how it functions. Which again, not a bad model. Axie did really well with it. But we're trying to have more depth behind our monsters and behind our battle mechanics. So I would say that that's probably the number one way that we're differentiating from those games in terms of gameplay is that you're customizing your monster yourself and you're not having to buy like crazy to do it. Um, Everyone's going to have a fighting chance to compete in this game if you build your team right. You guys get a lot of benefits for being early. You know, you're getting a lot of free monsters through airdrops and tokens and things that later players won't have access to. But that doesn't mean it'll be impossible for them to come in and be a competitor. So yeah, I would say that that's probably the number one differentiator. If that's not in line with what you were asking about, let me know. There are a lot of ways to differentiate from a project, and everyone views it a little differently. So, yeah, feel free to let me know there. Next question: will you be able to do scholarships? Oh, also, as a side note, I have to go in like 3 minutes, so we're gonna zoom through this last bit. Will you be able to do scholarship with your Genesis champions? How will it work if so? So we're not doing a scholarship structure because that creates like sort of this like hyperinflation pyramid mechanic, kind of like what you've seen with Axie. We're going to be doing something similar called the Alliance, and that's going to involve you staking your monsters to the Alliance in order to be used by other people. So no, you won't be able to do a scholarship with your Genesis champion, but you will be able to generate earnings on your own or loan those earnings out to other people for like a revenue share style mechanic. The reason that we don't focus on that too much right now is that it's not going to be part of the alpha. So it's something that is, like going to be in the works like later in development. Not late, but just not like at the forefront. Like we'll have PvP implemented before that. It's looking like because PvP is going to be a really good early community opportunity, whereas the alliance mechanic is more of a growth opportunity. But yeah, good question. I think revenue sharing is really good, a really good model for Web3 games, and so we definitely want to make sure that we capitalize on that. Question from Kanan: what do you think about using IMX and their chain? Yeah, I think it's good. I like IMX. We're currently not planning to build on it, but we're always looking for opportunities to improve and pivot, in ways that benefit the community. And so we'll keep an eye on IMX and see if it makes sense for us. But For right now, we're focused on building on Polygon. That's what our developers know. They're really good at it, and we want to let them do that. Um, but at the same time, they do like improving. They're always looking to learn. And so, it's possible that we explore IMX more in the future, or other chains for that matter. Um, but yeah, right now Polygon will be our home. Um, how will new joiners get their first eggs? So when you start the game, you're going to get kicked off with a couple like off-chain monsters to help them start in playing. Um, but they're going to have sustained gameplay in order to obtain like actual eggs where you can like buy, sell, and trade them on the marketplace. Um, that's designed to prevent people from just coming in and being like straight extractive with the ecosystem. So that way you have to put a little bit in to get something out. Okay, I've got time for like one more question, so I apologize if I don't get to someone's. Question from Liang: how easy is it to get a monster core? Um, Really easy. You just need a duplicate monster. So you're gonna take a monster and turn it into a core. An example would be Moose Sprout. If you have two Moose Sprouts, you can turn one of them into a core, like a Moose Sprout core, and socket it onto the other Moose Sprout. So it's just a one-to-one, really easy. We also have Omnicores, Omnicore, Omnicore. I'll type it in the chat as well. Those will be able to be slotted on any monster. You'll accumulate those like at a less linear ratio, so it'll be you can condense a monster into a certain number of Omnicore shards, and then you put those shards together to create like a complete core, and then those can be slotted onto anything. So the reason that's important is it helps uphold the floor price of something that may not be useful in the meta. So for example, if we have an ultra rare and the balance just isn't quite there yet, like maybe it's falling behind the other ultra rares, it means that ultra rare still retains its utility as a core. So you can condense that ultra rare into an omni core and use it to enhance other ultra rares. So I really like that structure, and I think it's going to serve us well. But yeah, so regular cores are one-to-one, putting duplicates of one monster onto the same monster. If you're looking at rarity-based duplicates, that's when you get into the omnicores, and that's when it requires a little bit more than just a one-to-one. And yeah, we could get into the balancing and the breakdown of that some other time if you guys want. And then we got these graphics from Canon. We'll look into those. Those are pretty easy to make, so I can do that. I think we actually touched on it in a previous AMA as well, where I said that I liked graphics, and so yeah, good point. We'll go back to those. Okay, looks like we only have like one more question, so I can get to it real quick. Question from Tammy Badger. Are there any plans to give more advantages to high-level champions beside the percent bonus? Right now, you're afraid people would only need one high-level champion and have no incentive to get more. Examples of things levels could do is the higher the level, the better percents on monsters. Yeah, good question. So airdrops are going to be, I call it non-discriminatory. They're going to, anyone who owns a champion will benefit from it. Where you do look into the levels of champions being more beneficial is when you potentially get into in-game resource generation. So like having multiple champions to passively generate resources. We mentioned that we're probably not going to be doing staking for tokens directly, but looking into like elemental affinity, maybe each champion can generate like an egg of their affinity over time. And so the rarity of that egg might depend on the strength of the champion, or the rates from that egg. So definitely a good thing to keep in mind. But yeah, good question, and it's a good point. But for airdrops, you can expect all champions to function the same in terms of rarity. And yeah, with that, we're going to conclude this AMA. I've got to run. I've got a lot of meetings today. They're all good, a lot of good meetings for growth for us. But yeah, we're going to get this recording out to you guys as soon as possible, I think. As far as I can tell, we didn't have any issues with it. But I appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure you guys post any extra questions you have in the general chat if you want them answered immediately, or the AMA chat if you want them answered in the next AMA. And that will be on next Thursday, so 1 week from today. And it'll start, I believe, 30 minutes later than today's did. But thank you guys again. We'll be seeing you guys soon. Take care.